Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. I just got back from FedExForum where the Lakers held on. They survived just barely, 123 to 120 to a Memphis Grizzlies team that was basically a G League roster. They had 13 of their active roster players out in this game due to injury, but they still nearly pulled off the upset. This one went down to the wire. As I will get into with one of my takeaways, an unserious performance by the Lakers. The last time I used that term was the Washington win, and that performance was a little bit more excusable just because the Lakers were at the end of a 6-game road trip. They were on a back-to-back, and they just wanted to get home. For this one, this was the start of the road trip. They're playing a team that is undermanned. It's Anthony Davis's first game back after missing the last game and 3 quarters. And yet the Lakers needed 43 minutes from Anthony Davis and 41 minutes from LeBron James just to get this win. And to be clear, a win is a win at this point in the season. As we just saw with the Denver Nuggets losing to the San Antonio Spurs, nothing is guaranteed at this point in the season. But even with that said, this was an ugly and concerning win for the Lakers, just given the general lack of urgency on both sides of the ball. Defensively, their point of attack defense, their backline rotations, their rebounding, and then offensively, the turnovers, the shot selection, and just the inability to exploit their obvious mismatches at times. Like, there were stretches of this game where the Grizzlies went small without a center. Trey Jemison was in foul trouble at various points, and the Lakers still were settling for jumpers, turning the ball over, and failing to get back in transition. And there's a human nature element to this when you look across the floor and you see a team of guys that you feel like you should be blowing out. Like, the line entering this game was 15.5, which is an enormous line. Like, the Lakers were the heavy favorites in this game. And the fact that it really came down to the last few minutes and really the last few seconds where LeBron gets a steal and it finishes with an emphatic double pump reverse dunk to seal the game, and he's laughing and smiling. Like, it took that with a few seconds left for the Lakers to finally exhale. And again, a win is a win, but the Lakers' lack of urgency and carelessness and just generally not looking like they're on the same page for large stretches of this game was a bit concerning. With that said, you guys know the drill. Let's touch on some of the box score numbers and we'll get into our 3 takeaways. LeBron led the way with 37 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, though he did have 8 turnovers, nearly half of the Lakers' turnovers. It's very rare for LeBron to have more turnovers than assists, and it's even more rare for him to have nearly double the amount of turnovers that he had assists. And part of that was the lack of shot making for the rest of the group. The Lakers only had 4 guys in double figures tonight: LeBron, AD, Austin, and Rui. And that's pretty wild considering the Lakers shot 52% and attempted 34 free throws. But the majority of the offense funneled through LeBron, AD, Austin, and Rui, with the rest of the group struggling to make shots for the most part. LeBron was 13 of 20 overall, had 3 threes, did get to the free throw line 11 times, making 8. And despite his double-double and nearly 40 points, he was the face of the lack of urgency at times. This was one of those games where he was not rotating early for the most part, where he was not boxing out necessarily, where offensively he was throwing the ball all over the place and had a lot of uncharacteristic turnovers, getting the ball poked loose and just firing passes that weren't there. But he did figure it out in the second half, did make several key plays in the fourth quarter to help seal this game. And I thought defensively started to step up later in the game. It took him a while, to be clear. So I'm not going to absolve him of what I thought was a pretty poor performance overall defensively, but he did help as the Lakers rounded into form in the fourth quarter and started to ramp up their defensive effort and urgency, and LeBron was a part of that. So I'm going to say not his best performance. The Lakers were -3 in his 41 minutes. So that's +6 in the 7 minutes he was off the floor. And plus minus isn't everything, but I think that's an accurate depiction of how the Lakers were slightly worse actually with LeBron on the floor in this game, kind of given his energy and effort levels at times. AD had 36 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. He was just 11 for 22 from the floor, which is a bit of an off night by his standards. and just 13 of 17 at the free throw line. Did miss a couple of key free throws late, but it didn't end up costing the Lakers. He also had 4 turnovers, which was the second most on the team behind LeBron. So AD was a culprit for sure. Like there were several times like Jordan Goodwin got him off the dribble and scored a reverse kind of swooping layup over him. Like the Grizzlies guys were going at AD, and he did get a couple blocks and altered several other shots, but they were scoring over him at ease. And I think he was fatigued. Like LeBron and AD both played the entire fourth quarter in this one. And again, there is a trickle-down effect of if LeBron and AD play a bunch of minutes, taking on that level of workload, both guys going for 36 plus points in 41 plus minutes, in this matchup, like this was supposed to be an easy win for the Lakers. This was supposed to be a game where those guys were resting by the end of the third, early fourth quarter. And instead, they both had to exert a Herculean effort to pull this one out. Otherwise, there's honestly not much to talk about with the box score. Austin Reeves had 13 points in only 25 minutes. He dealt with foul trouble, had 5 fouls, had to sit from about the 5-minute mark to the 2-minute mark. Rui had 14 points and 5 rebounds in only 29 minutes. Wasn't really sure why the Lakers went away from Rui as much as they did. This is the second consecutive game, with the other one being the Warriors game, where like Rui was 5 for 6 tonight, 2 for 3 from 3. I thought his defense could have been better. He was like the starting group overall was not playing well. And looking at it, like 3 of the 5 players were net negatives in terms of plus minus, with D'Lo barely being a positive at +1 and AD barely being a positive at +2. So that shows like the starters for the most part were struggling in both the first and third quarters. And even in the fourth quarter, when Darvin went back to them, it was relatively close between them and Memphis's G League MASH unit. D'Lo had his third consecutive game shooting under 30%. He had 4 points on just 2 of 9 shooting. Did have 10 assists, so he continues to play make. I think that's one key difference between this season and last season with him in terms of still finding ways to be effective offensively. But defensively, he was a glaring target in this one. Scottie Pippen Jr. was going at him off the dribble. The Grizzlies were targeting him on screens. They were looking for him all over the floor. And he did have a crucial block late and some deflections. But for the most part, he was a glaring negative in this game. Just overall with his defense and forcing shots at times and trying to kind of get out of that shooting slump. So D'Lo, again, I'm going to touch on it a little bit later, but his play recently has been pretty concerning. Taurean Prince had 9 points in 24 minutes. He got the close with Austin Reeves dealing with foul trouble and then D'Lo being a defensive liability over the last couple minutes. Gabe Vincent hit a couple shots, including a 3-pointer. Lakers were plus 27 in his 19 minutes, which was a team best mark. Jackson Hayes only played 5 minutes, which I found interesting given AD's workload tonight. I thought those two probably could have shared the floor together. And then Spencer Dinwiddie had 3 points in 20 minutes. And Max Christie and Cam Reddish were both DNP CDs. Before we get into the 3 takeaways from tonight's game, I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone who has subscribed and followed and been supporting the channel and the podcast. I started this channel about 2.5 months ago. The support, the feedback, I appreciate it. I haven't been as active in the comment section lately, but I promise I will be better with that. But I read everything. I really appreciate the support. And I'm excited for where this is going to go, where this is going to grow to. And I couldn't do it without you guys. So I just wanted to give you all a quick shout out and a quick thank you. All right, so takeaway number 1 is Unserious Basketball 2.0. It's a play on words from my takeaway from the Lakers win over the Wizards to end their 6-game road trip. And I'm using it again because I think it perfectly encapsulates the way that the Lakers play at times. Like, they are an unserious basketball team at their worst. And tonight was the latest example. They had 19 turnovers leading to 26 Grizzlies points. The Grizzlies grabbed 16 offensive rebounds leading to 22 second chance points. And looking at the culprits, it was actually mainly Jordan Goodwin, who is a guard, a 6'4" guard at that, who had 8 offensive rebounds, half of the Grizzlies' offensive rebounds. So a lot of that was Austin, D'Lo, Spencer, and Gabe not boxing out, and Jordan Goodwin just beating those guys to the ball as they're trying to get out in transition or get open for an outlet pass. So this is something we've seen at various points this season in terms of active, high energy guards burning the Lakers for offensive rebounds. Maybe not to this extent. I mean, 8 offensive rebounds has to be one of the highest totals. I believe Nurkic had a performance earlier in the season where he had like 10 or 11, somewhere in that range. But 8 has to be one of the highest numbers, period, but especially for a guard. So he had 8. Timmy Allen, who's a 6'6" wing, also had 3. And then Trey Jemison had a couple. That dude's a beast. He's like made out of granite. But really, it was the Grizzlies guards who were disrupting the Lakers in terms of playing passing lanes, getting steals. Looking at the steals quickly, Goodwin had 4 steals. Scottie Pippen Jr. had 4. Gigi Jackson had 3. And I think the game really flipped midway through the fourth quarter when there was a loose ball. Scottie Pippen Jr. dives on it. And there's kind of a collision with D'Lo as they're both jostling for the ball on the ground. And Scottie Pippen Jr., in the process of diving and colliding with D'Lo, hits his head on the hardwood and exits the game with about, I want to say there was like 5.5 minutes left, does not return. And that was Scottie Pippen Jr., former Laker, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals. He was awesome tonight. And again, I mentioned Jordan Goodwin, 23 points, 17 rebounds. Jake LaRavia, 28 points. Gigi Jackson, 31 points. So like the Grizzlies had 4 guys go for 23 or more, and all 4 guys who would not be starting in theory on their varsity squad if everyone was at full strength. It'd be some combination of Ja, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. Like maybe Gigi Jackson would start. Like maybe Gigi or LaRavia would start with how well they've played since those guys have been out. But I think it would probably be Brandon Clark or Santi Aldama. So like Memphis, this was their second and third string guys just taking it to the Lakers. And part of that, I think Memphis deserves credit for, like, those guys all have something to prove. They're all earning their spots in the league right now. And there was just an element of they were the hungrier group, but they were also the more organized group at times. They had a cohesive plan on both sides of the ball, and the Lakers did not. And for them to be struggling with that in game 81, like, I know there's a human nature element to it, but I would have liked to have seen a level of urgency in this one where they just come out, they stomp the Grizzlies, they win this by 20, and maybe the Lakers second and third string guys give up the lead because that's what they tend to do. Then, maybe it's more similar to the Washington game in that way. I just think the fact that, like, just the lack of urgency and cohesion and organization on both sides of the ball tonight, and just the inability to stop the ball, the inability to protect the rim, the inability to grab rebounds. Like, there's just a lot of things that went wrong for the Lakers. And the fact that they won, I think, like, on one hand, it speaks to the brilliance of LeBron and AD. And even when the rest of the group is struggling offensively, they can put the team on their respective backs and carry them. But again, this was not a game the Lakers should have relied on LeBron and AD for playoff level minutes. And the fact that they not only had to play playoff level minutes, but have a playoff level workload offensively, I'm just a little concerned about the residual effects of that. Takeaway number 2 is D'Lo is in a mini shooting slump at the wrong time. So he is 10 of 39 in his last 3 games. As aforementioned, he has shot under 30% in all 3 games. And a quick reminder, that's against Cleveland, against Minnesota, and now against Memphis. The Minnesota matchup is just a bad matchup for him. They can pressure him with multiple good to elite perimeter defenders in Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Jordan McLaughlin. And then they can funnel him into Rudy Gobert, who is one of the best rim protectors in the league and the current favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. So no AD, Minnesota was able to put McDaniels on D'Lo for stretches, and that one to me is a bit excusable. Cleveland is also an elite defense, though in a lot of the starting reps, he was going against Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. It was a 12:30 start, maybe that played some role in it. But the Lakers need D'Angelo Russell. And I thought LeBron had an interesting quote. He was asked about D'Lo's slump and just his level of aggression offensively, and if he felt that the slump was affecting that. And LeBron said, "We are at our best when D'Lo is at our best. And when he is aggressive, good things happen." And I'm paraphrasing, that wasn't the exact quote, but that was the spirit of what he said. And then he ended it by saying that D'Lo is going to be fine. He'll be able to shoot his way out of this. But I looked at the first couple lines as LeBron sort of sending the message of, we need D'Lo and we need him to be aggressive. And this has been the one concern and really the only legitimate knock against D'Lo. Like there's been a lot of stuff throughout the years of his maturity and shot selection and like different things, but it's really been in critical moments like the playoffs, looking at the way that he struggled in the Denver series, or in Brooklyn or Minnesota, having his role reduced or getting benched in critical games because of his defense. And I'm not saying that's the case tonight, but with him getting benched for the final 2 minutes, this is not the first time we've seen this since he's been a Laker. That there were several times last season. There were several times last season where the Lakers went with Dennis Schroeder over him, including at times in the playoffs. This year, he's often been the closer, but there's been times where the Lakers have gone with Spencer Dinwiddie or gone with bigger lineups with Austin as the nominal point guard. And I just think this is something to monitor. I don't want to overreact yet. It's just 3 regular season games. They do happen to be at a critical time where all of these games have been must wins for the Lakers, but I'm just tracking this and seeing, is this going to have an effect in New Orleans on Sunday, or the play-in, or the first round if the Lakers can make the playoffs? Like, how does D'Lo respond to this? And for the most part this season, he has responded well from slumps or poor performances or getting benched in a fourth quarter. Like, he's often bounced back with a 30, 35 point game, hits a bunch of threes, and is passable defensively. But there have been more games recently where he's been targeted defensively. The Lakers have leaned on Spencer and Gabe for stretches just because of their superior defense. And I'm just fascinated by how this plays out, how he responds to this in the short and long term, and how this all impacts the offseason, the Lakers' plans, like all that stuff. Like, if he struggles again in the play-in and the first round, that's going to matter for the Lakers, just like it mattered last year when they were negotiating that he struggled in the Denver series. And that was a concern for LA in terms of signing him to a longer term deal. So there's a lot at stake here, not just the Lakers season, but him as a potential impending free agent who is coming off one of the best seasons of his career. Like, this would be the worst time to have a shooting slump and play his worst basketball of the season. And he's not playing his worst basketball of the season. I think that was in December or 2-3 weeks there of December. But again, I'm just monitoring this. I think it's an important storyline just because, as LeBron said, the Lakers are often at their best when D'Lo is hitting multiple threes, playing loose, playing confidently, whereas the recent version of D'Lo over the last few games has not been that player. And finally, takeaway number 3 is several things broke right for the Lakers from a seeding and standings perspective tonight. Let me explain. So first of all, the Lakers won, which they needed to do. But second of all, both the Kings and the Warriors lost. And both of those teams entered the night tied with the Lakers. And both have both the head-to-head and 3-way tiebreakers over the Lakers. So despite all 3 teams being tied, the Lakers are actually the number 10 seed entering tonight's game. But with both teams losing and the Lakers winning, the Lakers move up to number 8, the Kings drop to number 9, and the Warriors drop to number 10. Now, the third positive update directly relates to that because the reason that the Kings and the Warriors lost respectively was because they lost to the Suns and the Pelicans respectively. So the Suns beat the Kings. They had a big comeback in Sacramento, and the Pelicans beat the Warriors in Golden State. And that kept the Pelicans at number 6, and it kept the Suns at number 7. So now if the seedings remain, the play-in matchups would be 7-8, Suns hosting the Lakers, and 9-10, Kings hosting the Warriors. So the Lakers would have to go to Phoenix, where they've already won, and hold a 3-2 edge in the season series and beat the Suns to earn the number 7 seed. If they lose that, they would then host the winner of the Kings-Warriors game. So a much better position for the Lakers being at number 8 compared to number 10, which brings us to positive development number 4, which is that the Denver Nuggets lost to the San Antonio Spurs tonight, which put them in a 3-way tie with the Oklahoma City Thunder and Minnesota Timberwolves for the 1 seed, except Denver, like the Lakers, does not have the tiebreaker against those 2 teams. So they're actually the 3 seed right now, which means that whether the Lakers get in as the 7 seed or whether they get in as the 8 seed, they would not be facing the Denver Nuggets if the standings remain. And a lot can change. Denver is playing at Memphis. They will be heavily favored to win that game, although, as we saw tonight, who knows with this Memphis squad. OKC is playing Dallas in a game that Dallas will be resting its guys, so OKC should be getting the win. And then Minnesota hosts Phoenix. Minnesota jockeying for position, but the Suns also battling the Pelicans for the 6th seed to potentially get out of the play-in. So if the Suns win and the Lakers beat the Pelicans will be the 7th seed, the Suns will be the 6th seed, and the Lakers will be number 8, and they will play at New Orleans. So we would actually be staying in New Orleans for 4 or 5 days, depending on when they ultimately end up playing. So a lot of moving pieces. The one development that is notable for the Lakers as well is that because New Orleans is still battling Phoenix for the 6th seed and the ability to avoid the play-in, that does mean that New Orleans is not going to rest their guys on Sunday. They're going to go for it. There was a scenario where if Phoenix had lost, New Orleans would have been locked into number 6, and they could have rested their guys against the Lakers, giving the Lakers basically a free win. Though again, who knows with the Lakers and playing against bench units and whatnot, but you would think the Lakers would find a way to at least get the win, no matter how ugly that would be. But this is really pivotal because really the only way the Lakers could drop would obviously be losing. So the Lakers control their own destiny again. If they beat the Pelicans on Sunday, they will be no lower than 8th and potentially as high as 7th. But if they lose that game on Sunday and the Kings or the Warriors win, the Lakers could drop to number 9 or even number 10. So there's still a wide range of outcomes for the Lakers. But that game against the Pelicans is a must win. It is essentially a play-in game. And no, their season's not over if they lose, but there is a big difference between being in the 9-10 game and facing single elimination versus being in the 7-8 and having the ability to either advance or have a second chance if you end up losing that game and having that second chance at home. So a big night for the Lakers from that perspective. Again, to recap, they win. The Kings and the Warriors both lose, dropping them into the 9-10 game. The Suns and Pelicans win, setting up a potential 7-8 matchup between the Lakers and the Suns, though it will depend on the results of the final game of the season. Given that the Pelicans are still trying to fend off the Suns, the Pelicans will be trying in that Sunday game, and that will be like a Game 7 play-in-esque atmosphere. And with Denver losing, there's an increased chance now that they are not the 1 seed and maybe not even the 2 seed, meaning that if the Lakers get in as the 7 or 8, there's a decent chance they're playing Oklahoma City or Minnesota, which are both much more favorable matchups than the Denver Nuggets. And as I've said on Buha's block and in my post-game reactions, I would pick the Lakers over both the Thunder and the Timberwolves. I think it'll be close. I think it's probably a 6 or 7 game series either way, but I would favor the Lakers in that, especially if they could get Jared Vanderbilt back. Though we were told today that there's been no official update. They're not sure when there's going to be an update. He did have a good workout today, according to Darvin Ham. I've been told that Vando has ramped up his conditioning into light jogging, but he has not returned to on-court contact activity yet, which means he's not going to play Sunday in New Orleans. Even playing in the play-in seems unlikely. So if Vando returns, it's appearing as if it's going to have to be in the first round of the playoffs on the early side. So maybe the Lakers get him back for a matchup against the Timberwolves or the Thunder or maybe even mid-series. So a lot to be determined in the next 48 hours, but it's going to be exciting and I will be covering it as it unfolds. But that'll do it for tonight's episode. I am not feeling well at all. This is my version of the flu game. I'm gutting this one out, but had to react to this one tonight just as I react to every game. So again, thank you for watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, liking, and commenting. For those on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, please consider following, downloading, and leaving a 5-star review. I'll be back on Sunday with a post-game reaction to the Lakers game against the Pelicans. I will talk to you then.